Welcome back to Culture Me If You Can. It's time for our segment Out in the Field, where we explore a different profession every episode.
Our guests today are Shajib Al-Rashid, who teaches physics and electronics, and Elliot Henchy, who teaches maths.
Well, Elliot, what first made you want to teach maths?
That's a good question. I didn't expect to teach maths, to be honest. So I did a maths degree, and after I'd finished that, I went into insurance, and I found it pretty boring, actually. And there was a position at my local college where I could train to be a teacher. So I applied for it and started doing that, and straight away I realised it was a profession that I'd like to do. It was just really rewarding. I got to do maths for the sake of maths, and yeah.
So did you start teaching recently after you left college, or?
So yeah, I was 21 when I started, and it was a sixth form college, so it was teaching sort of 16 to 19-year-olds A-levels, and started off supporting smaller groups with a little bit of teaching, and sort of slowly built it up.
Oh, cool. What about you, Shajib? When was the first time you decided to teach physics?
Well, a similar kind of story, actually, because I didn't always know I wanted to go into teaching. I left university, worked in the civil service for a bit, and same reason, didn't really find it as, as fun as I thought it'd be, and I realised I really missed physics and my subject at university. And at the time I was also coaching football to some kids, and I put the two together, thought let's try out some teaching, see if that would actually be something I'd like. And yeah, I went to some schools, saw some teachers doing some teaching, and I thought, yeah, this is something I might be interested in.
So what would you say is the most rewarding part about teaching?
Most rewarding part? Yeah. Well, that's again quite a good question, and I mean, it's like with any job, I guess you have your sort of good days and bad days, and I think when you have that really good lesson, or you've planned something really well and the kids really get it, and those kind of little instances when the kids kind of really just get something that you've just taught them and they can show it to you as well, then that's really satisfying, I think. Yeah.
What about you, Elliot? Is there anything different?
Yeah, it's the same really. I think towards the end of the year, sort of results day, and for us, because we predominantly teach sort of A-levels, and it's preparing students to go off, get jobs in university and things like that, and seeing them get their results and going off to different places, it's nice to know that you sort of helped them get where they wanted to go.
Yeah.
And now kind of the opposite. What's the biggest challenge about being a teacher?
Do you want to go first, or?
Biggest challenge, I think you need to be able to stay calm when there's lots of things going on, because you can have a class of sort of 20, 30 students, and you've got that to deal with, and you've got all the sort of the admin, you've got the things that your sort of management sort of expect you to do, and there could be lots of things that you need to think about, but really, if you relax and you're able to sort of handle different things, sort of stay calm, then actually you realise, I can do this then, do this then. But it takes a bit of getting used to, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually...
So there's a lot of multitasking involved?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Shajib?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still quite new into teaching. I think starting off, I found it really, really challenging at the beginning, managing my work, the classroom with the kids, as Elliot was saying, and it's one of those things that once you find yourself getting a little bit more organised, and you know what you're doing day to day, keeping good sort of structure in your kind of timetable as you're going through the week, then it gets easier over the years. So the workload is quite challenging. It is still challenging. I'm not saying it's not challenging anymore. We're still finding it quite difficult to manage everything, but yeah, kind of just staying calm and taking things one step at a time, working through it, having good colleagues to support you, it works out quite well.
It definitely gets easier, for sure.
And also, are there any specific qualifications required for teaching?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if I say how I got into it, I did the normal traditional kind of route of doing a PGCE. So you do your degree in a subject that you like, so physics, or I did physics degree, and then a PGCE is a one-year course you do through university, and that involves lectures and then placements in schools. And after that year's over and you get qualified, then you can apply to most secondary and sixth form colleges.
Cool.
Okay. What about you, Elliot?
Yeah, it's the same thing really. So a PGCE is a postgraduate certificate in education, and if to be qualified to teach in sort of most schools, you need to have that. I did my PGCE in the lifelong learning sector, which means I trained predominantly for 16 to 18 sort of post-compulsory education, because I wanted to sort of teach A-levels and things like that.
So is that what Shojib meant by he doing the traditional route and you doing something slightly different?
Yeah, I think mine is slightly different, but once you've done that, so you do your PGCE through a university, you then will have your first year in a college where you do your it's called your NQT year, where you're a newly qualified teacher, where you get a bit more support and you have a bit of evidence you have to show, and through either one of our PGCEs you get what's called, I've got all the acronyms, QTS, which is your qualified teacher status, and then you're good to go.
Right. Well, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to become a teacher?
I think, yeah, for me initially I wasn't sure, because I knew it's something that you really need to be committed to do, because I have sort of like family who are teachers and they tell me about their job, and I think the first thing and the best thing to do at the beginning is to actually go into schools and just observe and just watch, be in the classroom environment, just see how things are going over a couple of weeks, speak to as many teachers as you can, ask as many questions, and if you kind of feel comfortable in that setting, then you can start doing some research into like what route you want to take into teaching, because it's not just a PGC, there are other ways, like there's Schools Direct, there's one where you could actually be training in the school whilst getting a qualification at the same time. So there's other routes into it, but definitely get the experience in the classroom in the beginning.
So experience is really key in order to know if you really want to actually be a teacher?
Yeah, that's
okay, that makes sense, yeah. Anything you'd like to add, Elliot?
I think it's a sort of job where I think if you can't go into it half-heartedly, and there will be challenges, and especially those sort of first couple of years is probably when it's a bit more difficult and you're getting used to the role. So if you are going to do it, you want to kind of be up for the challenge, and yeah, and it's worth it.
You both mentioned that you came into teaching quite young. Did you find it difficult to establish boundaries, especially if you're teaching A-level students, they're quite close to your age?
I think I'm still, so we had our college open day a couple of weekends ago, and a few parents were sort of saying, so are you studying here at the college? And that's always quite embarrassing. But I think with even if you're young, if you teach properly and you sort of know your subject, and I've never had any problems really with it. Yeah. Yeah,
I think I agree with that. I think I do sometimes still get those kind of comments as well about like they're not really sure if I'm a sixth former there as well. But yeah, I mean, once you sort of know what you're doing, you kind of set those expectations at the beginning, as you being the teacher, and yeah, no, it just comes with building that relationship with this student over time. It doesn't happen right at the beginning, but over time you can build that relationship to be work both ways really.
Yeah. Well, if you guys both have to deal with large groups of teenagers on a daily basis, how tough can that be?
Sort of teenagers such as yourselves. This question is quite often asked, and sort of some of my friends will say, "Oh, how do you do it?" But really, you guys are pretty harmless, and I think it's actually just quite entertaining, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're quite funny.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'd agree. At the beginning, I mean, it depends on the age group. I think sixth form, 16 to 19, is probably a little bit more easier to build that relationship at the beginning. At secondary school, so when I was teaching at secondary school, it was really tough at first. But like with anything, it just takes time. You need to kind of build that relationship over time. They need to really know who you are, know what your kind of, expectations are, and then it kind of works over time. But again, it takes practice. You kind of need to watch how other teachers do it as well. Yeah. And yeah, I don't really, it doesn't really concern me anymore, I don't think. I think it's like, I enjoy it. I enjoy the interaction, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Is there any kind of stress that the education system places on teachers like yourselves?
I think, yeah, it can be quite a stressful job, but there are lots of, I mean, every job will have its stresses and sort of its You have your good days and your bad days. I think with anything, and workload and the stress is about a lot of it's how you manage it, and sort of making decisions about how much work that you want to take home with you. And there's always strategies of sort of making things easy for yourself. So yeah, I think it can be stressful, but it doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be.
No. Yeah, I mean, it is one of those things that does kind of drive teachers out of the profession, you know, the workload. And I think, you know, what Elliot's saying about being able to deal with it, like, personally. And Elliot's actually my mentor at the college, and one of the pieces of advice he gave to me, like, you know, I'd remember this, and I think it's really important, is that you need to sometimes take your needs first. So if you're finding yourself, like, really working too much and, like, burning yourself out, you need to kind of stop and really think that really, you know, you need to take care of yourself first, you know, and, like, have that one day where you're not worried too much about the work. So, like, beginning, when I started teaching, yeah, I'd find myself working weekends a lot.
I'm really sorry, Shajib, but
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Oh, okay. Yes, man.
We're
Thank
running
you.
out of time.
Sure.
I hope you all enjoyed today's episode and know more about teaching, because it was a really interesting profession. And make sure you guys stay tuned for the last Saturday of every month for the next episode. And thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.